and comments. Now, without further ado, here's your host, L. Nathan Hare.
All right, here we go. Living now, living right now. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host here for this next hour at WFO Power 96.5 FM on your dial. Our principal sponsor, of course, the Community Action Organization of Western New York, still fighting the war on poverty, now in our 53rd year. I want to welcome all of you again to this hour of insight, introspection, and interpretation of facts, events, and trends affecting you right here and right now in Buffalo and the Western New York community, and in fact, connect you to communities all across the country. Each week, we focus on things we think will be of interest to you, which will serve to motivate you and serve to connect you to the broader issues that affect our communities here in Western New York. Now, today's program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. I hope that you will. Our number here again is 837-1112. That's 837-1112. And before we get into our subject for today, we're going to be talking a bit about food deserts and some initiatives that are being put together to help us to address food insecurity. And I'll explain what all of that means in our community. But this is the 4th of July week. It's an odd week because we always think of these holidays being celebrated on a Friday or a Monday. But this holiday falls on a Wednesday. And my family does their family reunion on the 4th of July weekend because that's when my great-grandmother's birthday was. But they decided to celebrate it this past weekend, not next weekend. Why, I don't know. I guess because Wednesday's in the middle of both weeks, so they just decided to go last week and so on. But when we talk about the 4th of July celebration, for me, it's an awkward celebration. I don't know what it is in your mind, but it's an awkward celebration for me because it celebrates something that happened to African people as much as it celebrates or recognizes something that was done for Americans as a community of people. What do I mean by that? Obviously, we should all be, happy or glad that the American colonies were able to free themselves from England and establish the new world, if you will, that becomes the United States of America. I mean, let's be honest, the English that the United States got free from, they were the authors of the slave economy that built the Americas, right? So I'm having a tough time as an African person feeling real good about the fact that the Americans freed themselves from the English, who were the authors of enslavement, but then they preserved slavery against African people. And then they asked me to clap and celebrate and do, firecrackers and so on, okay, celebrating something that was done to me as opposed to celebrating something that was done for me. It's important because we always talk about education on this show, and we cannot forget the fact that this country was built on the backs of African enslavement. And so when we talk about the 4th of July, there was no celebration amongst African people when the 4th of July, took place and America announced that it was free of England as the colonial overlord over the United States. There's no joy in their hearts. At least there's no joy in my heart. I don't know how you all feel about it, but that's how I feel about it. Just as Germany and Poland, they have a tendency to minimize their role in Nazi Germany and Nazi Europe. I need for us to understand that too. The movement that took place under Hitler was not just a German movement. So we're clear about this, right? This was a European Nazi movement, not just a German Nazi movement. Hitler was like the preeminent, exemplar of the Nazi movement, but he was by no means the only dictator under Nazism. You had Franco in Spain, you had Mussolini in Italy, you had it going on in Austria, you had it going on in Poland, you had it going on in France. In fact, every country in Europe had a high degree of anti-Semitism. Of course, in those days, anti-Semitism meant that you were an Arab-type person. Now the word has been retranslated, so it means being anti-Jewish. I don't know. See, Huey Newton used to say that he who defines the word has power over the word and the reality that that word describes. And we have to keep that in mind. We can't let people colonize words and change the words' meanings and then change what we find ourselves teaching ourselves because we allow somebody to change the actual substance of what something actually means. And so even the Jewish descendants of the Holocaust, they're engaged in this minimizing behavior too. What do I mean by that? 14. I know y'all can count. These just two-digit numbers now, right? And one-digit number. So we had 14 million people, according to the history books, were killed in the Nazi gas chambers and their slave. 14 million people were killed in those camps and in those gas chambers and so on. But of those 14 million people, and my guest is here, so I don't have to I don't have to keep stretching about whether or not he's here because he's here. Okay, I got a seat right over here for you. So you just got to work with me. I'm just kind of putting a thread out, for the audience. But it's going to lead to you guys in just a second. But the Jewish people, they don't talk about the fact that there were 14 million people that were killed in the Holocaust. Only 6 million, and I don't mean only in the sense of minimizing it, but 6 million of the 14 million people that were killed in the Holocaust were Jewish people. Whoever talks about the other 8 million people? Whoever even mentions their names? Who even knows who those 8 million people were? That those were handicapped people. Those were homosexual people. Those were gypsy people. Those were people who were too short or too tall, whose skin was just a little bit too dark to be considered regular Europeans. In fact, the same people who were being killed by the Nazis in Germany are the same people who are being pushed back out of Europe right now, by these Brexit people and so on, right? And so it's important for us to understand this 4th of July in context, right? We are in and you need to put that over your head, and do we have another thing that we can put her headphone in? Thank you. We need to understand 4th of July in context, that it's not just about, works and picnics or whatever we call it. I don't like that word picnic, but
Yeah.
I call them outings. That's as far as I can go. But it's not just about that. It's about us understanding how we got to the place that we are in right now, so that we understand what we need to be doing so that we don't end up staying in the place that we're in right now forever or going backwards. I mean, we got a Supreme Court that's about to turn the clock back. I mean, I'm not a fan, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of abortion. I think that you should find a way to keep your kids. But I am willing to defend is a woman's right to her body.
Right.
If I can be blunt about that. This is what I mean by that. If we have a car crash and both of us are hanging off the cliff, but you're hanging on, or I'm hanging on your leg, and the only way that you can get up the cliff is if you shake me off so that you can go, because you can't get both of us up. You can only get one of us up, right? I don't have the right, or I don't have the right to demand that you sacrifice your life in order to save my life. I would hope that you would be noble enough, right? You would be courageous enough to sacrifice a lot to help me stay on the planet. But I don't have a right to demand that you have to do that. I can't edict that. That's your decision because it's your life. You have a right to decide what to do with your life, right? I don't get to make up something to do with your life, right? So I just wanted to kind of get this thought out here as we talk about this 4th of July celebration that as we rejoin this discussion. Let's keep in mind that we have to be the persons who are responsible for creating our own dignity and creating our own destiny. We can't just leave this up to someone else, because obviously if you leave it up to someone else, there's a reason why they call them someone else.
Right.
That means they're not you. If they're not you, they don't have the same investment in your life that you have in your own life. So I'm saying this as a sort of a segue to get into discussion about self-determination, because in my mind, that's the answer to racism and discrimination and all the disparities that we suffer in education and employment and economic ownership and so on. It's self-determination. And part of that is about us being accountable for how we ensure our own health and survival. Food deserts. Food deserts are a strange construction. We live in this fabulously rich country, and I mean fabulously rich. This country has $20 trillion in new dollars that get created every year. I don't even know how to put my mind. I don't even know if I know how to write $20 trillion. Right. If you turn $20 trillion into $5 bills, you could walk back and forth to the moon 4 or 5 times, okay? And you'd still have some $5 bills left over. That's how serious $20 trillion is, right? And so this country creates an awful lot of money. How is it that we have food deserts in the United States where people can't get into walking distance to real food? How does that even occur? But wherever there is a disparity, there's also an opportunity, right? And so we can fill that opportunity if we find our way forward to getting that done. So I have with me Alex Wright, who is the founder and president of the African Heritage Food Co-op. And I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Felicia Dove, owner of Black Marketing.
All right, Felicia Dove, owner of Black Marketing. And Black Marketing does what?
Black Monarchy.
Monarchy.
Oh, Monarchy.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that was me. I thought that was me you were talking about. Okay.
So happy to be here.
So, Alex.
Yes, sir.
Talking about this food desert stuff, let me just give you what the definition is on the Google account, right? It talks about an urban area in which it is difficult to buy affordable or good quality fresh food. It says that many poor people live in food deserts where they have plenty of food, but none of the food is healthy.
Right.
Now, there's a context here I want us to understand. In low-income communities, there are plenty of places that you can get stuff that is edible, that you could chew, that you could swallow, that you could excrete. You know, there's plenty of that stuff, right? But almost none of it is worth eating in the low-income communities.
Right.
In the upper-income communities, they got plenty of food that you can eat that's good for you.
Very true.
Right? So why would you have high-cost, low-nutritious food universally available in the low-income communities, and then you have highly nutritious, lower-cost food that you can get in a supermarket, right, in the middle and upper-income communities? Why does that exist?
Well, actually,
I probably do know the answer. I'm going to let you get the answer.
Right. I think, so we use the term food desert, but now people are addressing it as food apartheid.
Wow.
Because it is intentional. A desert happens, it's a part of nature. But to have these absences in our community, that's not just a part of nature. It's a part of something, a plan and a design. So when you look at where the grocery stores are going, and they do these things called feasibility studies, and just magically, it's never feasible to put a grocery store in our neighborhoods. With all these people eating every day, it's not feasible to put a grocery store in our neighborhood. So that's ridiculous. So what we have to do is, we have two things. We can complain about it, we can write letters, or we can say, you know what? We're going to get up off our butts ourselves and make something happen. And that's why we always have the motto, anything less than ownership is unacceptable, because once you own it, then you control it. And now we can begin to hire Tyrone, we can hire Keisha, we can hire these people that some of them say can't have a job or undesirable, and we can feed these people. Because what they're doing is they're just basically, we'll put a grocery store anywhere, and if they don't have it in their neighborhoods, those that can afford it will find a way to support us.
Exactly. See, here's something that the research points out that I find infuriating. The research says that the low nutrition, high cost food costs an awful lot for a little bit of, in other words, you buy a sandwich from McDonald's. It costs you, I don't know, I don't buy those kind of sandwiches, but I assume like $5 or $6, right?
And they're all over the hood.
Right, for just one sandwich, right?
Yeah.
And then you got French fries and all kind of other stuff like that. So you buy that stuff and you feel like you've been fed. But they have those kinds of foods, they have them all over low-income communities.
Yep.
So it's not that the low-income community people can't afford to buy the food.
It's access.
Because you're charging humongous amounts of money for just a small amount of food, and you have it all over the place.
And they're packed.
Right? Whereas in the middle and upper income communities, they have supermarkets, and you can and you can buy food at a supermarket price, right? So a lower price per pound of food, you're able to get it in so the places that can afford to spend the most per pound spend the least, and the places that really can't afford to spend the most, they're the ones who have the highest cost goods that are the least useful, for them.
It's like a poverty tax.
Right.
You you get taxed extra for being poor.
Yep. Okay, so if we want to get taxed less, we should stop being poor. So let's work this out. Okay.
That's right.
So you've got an event that's coming up. We've been talking about this, you and I, for a few weeks.
Yes, sir.
On the 17th.
14th.
The 14th, I'm sorry, to get us forward on the idea of us participating in control of our own food destiny. Because food, of all the things you got to have, there's water, important. Before water is oxygen. Of course, you can't make that, right? So you got no control over that, right?
Right.
Unless you stay close to the ground. You got more oxygen close to the ground than you have high in the ground. And then there's food, right? Food is more important than clothes. You can survive without clothes, but you need food, right? So food security.
Right.
This is what we're talking about, and how we can build a business model around addressing our need for food security in a way that we're building equity amongst ourselds over the ownership of something that is critical and necessary for us to exist. So you know that no matter what they do in Brexit and offshoring and all that stuff, you can't offshore eating. You either have food or you don't. Right. So that's always going to be local, right?
Yep.
So talk about this event on the 14th.
Okay, so on the 14th, we have our pickup day, and we have a Black Business Bazaar. All right, so it's twofold. One, when we looked at our own food insecurity, and we said we needed to start a business around food, because it's an essential part of our lives, and the only way for us to totally be in control of it is to actually be in control of it, because chain comes in and they're a great supermarket for as long as they're feasible, and then they can leave at any time. They can decide who they want to hire at any time. They put things in our community and won't even hire us. And sometimes things in the community that do hire us, but we're always in the back room. You go and look, say, who are the general managers? Who are the decision makers? Who are the people on the top here? And you rarely see us. And if you do see us, you rarely see us from this community. And we needed to stop that, and we needed to do that in such a way that's going to live longer than Alex Wright. So that's why we created a food co-op. A cooperative is basically a community-owned business, right? So we put our money in, we make the store, we build the store does well, all right? People can receive patronage dividends when the store does well, right? But they're always small. They're like $70, $80, $90, something like that, right? But why this is a good thing is if there are 1,000 of us, right? and we all have $80 coming back to us. Now we have $80,000 that we can collectively work with, right, and invest in another business or help our business go further.
So we're going to stop right there. I want you to get back on this subject, but we got to pay for the show.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So we want to take care of our sponsors. If you all stick with us, we will sit inside of the break here at Living right now.
Do you want to increase your home's value? Do you want to lower your energy bills? Are you in need of affordable financing for your next home improvement project? The CAO Home Improvement Resource Program can help. Just come to their monthly HIRP orientation session every second Wednesday of the month at 564 Dodge Street, Building 400. HIRP staff will help identify the resources you need to get financed, and they'll even help you with completing your application. You won't know what you qualify for until you call them today at 881-6543. That's 881-6543. Learn about all the home improvement programs you may be eligible for and ask about the affordable financing program that can help turn your house into your dream home. Call 881-6543 for more info. It's the Home Improvement Resource Program, restoring value to neighborhoods across Erie County, one house at a time. Brought to you by the Community Action Organization of Erie County.
All right, welcome back to Living Now here at WFO Power 96.5 FM on your dial. This is El Nathan here, your host, and we're here with Alex Wright, the founder and president of the African Heritage Food Co-op. And I'm sorry, I lost your name again. Say it again.
Felicia Dove, owner of Black Monarchy.
Right. Okay. And Felicia actually is a marketing person. So I want you to talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, you say what you do again.
Well, Black Monarchy is a artisan and fashion boutique, and we specialize in global merchandise. So we have 100% authentic African fabrics and just beautiful jewelry. We have things from all over the world. We specialize in African culture, African fashion, because there's a new narrative that needs to be explained and discussed surrounding people of color and the spaces that we now not only inhabit, but that we're now exploding all over the world. So Black Monarchy gives it a beautiful platform and a beautiful box like of a boutique.
Outstanding. So we were talking a little bit earlier about the fact that this article I was telling you guys about, written by David Green, it's an online magazine called Feeding Children Everywhere, and they talk about the fact that they actually study where to put supermarkets. And so they put the supermarkets in places that are either very well-to-do, middle class, upper class areas, or on commercial strips like Maple Road or Transit Road or Union Road, that are highly trafficked places that they put commercial operations. But it seems odd, in my mind, there's something different going on in the decision making that I don't get. Because I would think that you would put your stores where you think you're going to get the most sales. And since low-income people don't spend a whole lot of money buying Maseratis, and diamond rings and whatnot, they spend their money buying food. And clothes, right? It would seem to me that the best place for you to put a supermarket would be in a low-income area. You'd have trouble keeping the low-income people out of the supermarket. They'd be there all the time. It would become like the social gathering place, right?
Right.
Why doesn't that occur?
So we just had consultants come in about grocery stores and doing these very things and these feasibility studies. And they're like, well, there are a few people trying to do co-ops and low-income areas, and people haven't seen success, and we just don't know how to do a feasibility study there. And I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Go ahead, because Emmanuel Rapper is right here. He's the godfather of conspiracy theories.
It doesn't make any sense to me. People eat every day, and a lot of people are receiving some sort of food assistance.
Yeah.
Right? So there are food stamps, there's WIC, there's all these kind of things that are helping low-income folks to eat. So it would stand to reason, why not put a grocery store there when, a lot of the stuff is getting subsidized. Yeah. Right? But again, this is the funny thing. Food is something we need. So it doesn't matter where they put it, because we need it. There are people who are going to find a way to go way out there. So now instead of walking over to your grocery store, you're spending $15 on a cab. They used to have the old school gypsies. Now they got Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
So now you're adding so many costs to just getting there. And here's another thing. How come grocery stores don't have daycare?
Right.
How come there's not a small
But they
daycare
do.
in grocery stores?
They do. You go to some places,
Right.
and they have daycare up in the front of the store. So there's somebody who works for the store. They got a little room. They got little tricycles and whatever the stuff is that, short people, need to mess with. They got that right there in the room. And so you come, you drop your kids off at the daycare, you do your shopping, then you come back and you pick up your child. They do that in particular neighborhoods.
Right.
But they don't do that in the neighborhoods that are low-income neighborhoods, right?
Right.
Well, race and class is heavily synonymous, especially in a city like Buffalo. At one point, we were the 6th most segregated city in all of America, which is...
That's all. We moved up.
We might have moved up. And, having that intersectionality of race and class, having the access to things in disenfranchised neighborhoods, these are the problems that you're going to face. So you're going to have lower quality foods and all those other things because the lack of care for these impoverished communities. So things like the African Co-op is not only necessary, it's the only way we are able to, one, gain ownership, gain control of what we eat, gain control of our economics.
Right.
I love the idea that it's a co-op so that we all have something to put into it, so we all feel some type of ownership towards it to empower our communities.
Right.
And it's not a lot of money to be an owner, right?
No, sir.
So talk about the co-op and talk about this event on the 14th again.
All right. So again, for the co-op, we need members. We need people to be involved. Right now, it's $50 a year, but we're in plans of transitioning that to a one-time fee of $100. So instead of having an annual, it'll just be a one-time fee. We just have to do the official board vote on that. And that's going to help us, and we're trying to build a grocery store that's going to have that daycare facility, that's going to have that fresh fruits and all the good stuff that you need, but actually be a community-centered space.
And the fruits are awesome.
Thank you. So
Very
we
awesome.
try to do great quality. And the event on the 14th is our pickup day, so people who order boxes from us, they can come and pick it up. So boxes are $30 for a whole box, $15 for a half box, or $60 for a full organic box. All right? And we started doing this a couple years ago and noticed we were getting 100 or so people coming out. So I said, why don't we open this up to other black businesses, right? Since we have some walk-in traffic coming in, why don't, other black businesses come? And that's how the Black Business Bazaar started. And we're going to do it this 14th, July 14th. So not only can you pick up fresh fruits and vegetables, but we're going to have 30-plus black vendors there selling wares. All right. I know there's supposed to be a big party on the 14th that evening. So why don't you come during the day and get something for that all-white party?
Yeah.
Come and get something for these different events. We're going to have people such as Black Monarchy there. And the thing is, it's so many different types of vendors. One thing I never wanted to have is an event where you had 20 people selling the same kind of jewelry, or 15 people selling the same socks. Because what happens is nobody makes any money. Everybody tries to patronize $1 here and